I'm remembering something about myself from like maybe my like teenage years that I realized that like, oh yeah, I like
Ska music. Oh, is that what you were
and
gonna say?
and hello and welcome to another episode of the Screened In podcast. Here on the Screened In podcast, I don't know what John's doing. Here on the Screened In podcast, we watch anything that's on our screens. That includes movies, TV, anime, you name it. If it's on a screen, we're probably talking about it. I am joined by my esteemed co-host, Be Quiet. I don't know why he would. We're recording a podcast, John. We're supposed to be talking. So this week on the episode, we watched Quiet Place Day One. So the sound. You hear that, John? So as I was saying, that's a fact. We watched Quiet Place Day One for the podcast, and I went the extra mile and watched the other two just because I've never
Yeah.
seen them before. So that is our main draw tonight. But
Mhm.
before we get to that, John has also been watching something pretty scary. This is one of our October episodes, and we've finally succeeded at being a little bit creepy during our October episodes. John has wanted this. I don't know if we succeeded like going that deep into it, but
No.
a goal was initially to try to scare me. Nothing we've watched so far has scared me, although I had some jump scares on Quiet Place
Yeah.
movies for sure. So what did you watch, John?
Recently, just to start off, I love this trend of a trailer drops, I feel like a month max now, and then all of a sudden the thing is coming out.
Yeah.
So recently I had seen a trailer for a new Salem's Lot adaptation on HBO on Max. And we've talked about Stephen King before. You were just getting into his audiobooks. I've listened to a bunch. Have you ever read or listened to Salem's Lot?
No, 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 I haven't.
Oh, okay. I feel like Salem's Lot is up there as one of like King's like biggest kind of books.
Mm.
There's a lot that overshadow it, but I feel like it's a pretty iconic one. And I'll admit, I have never really seen other adaptations. I think there are some. But when this trailer came out, I just found it scrolling through Reddit, and my reaction, along with like all the other comments, were like, whoa, this actually looks pretty good. Cause I don't know, I feel like sometimes adaptations of things can just get off on the wrong foot. Like right away, people are like, that doesn't look right or something.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, this came out, I think, last week or so, like at the beginning of October. And, we're not going to talk about it too much. It's more or less instead of us recommending each other something like just through text, we might as well just do it here and then let everyone know, kind of. But I liked it. I think it's set in the 70s, and I feel like it's like sets that mood perfectly. I feel like it just looks just everything about it just looks period.
Mm.
Uh, to say that about the 70s is kind of crazy. Like it's a period piece in the 70s. No, overall, I wouldn't say it's not like a 9 or 10 out of 10 or anything like that. But it was definitely a movie I put on. I enjoyed it. If I look at what the reviews are, I think the reviews are not quite as good.
No.
Yikes. It's sitting at 46 on Rotten Tomatoes actually. But like I said though, is that I was hoping the audience score would save it. The audience score is a 40.
Oh,
So it's not great. Like I said, when I finished it, I in no way was I like, oh, that was fantastic.
yeah.
But I think it's worth a watch. Um, Acting is good in it. There's actually a kid actor in it that is
Mhm.
like, he's the best part of the whole thing. Like, I think compared to watching like Avatar and like how we would kind of ripped apart that main actor a little bit, or at least I did. I really like the performance of this kid. And yeah, a decent movie, not super scary. I think you'd be able to watch it. Yeah, and it's rare to get kind of muffle your ears if you don't want a potential spoiler, like a vampire movie.
I was gonna ask, because like I'm watching the trailer now, and I was thinking to myself, "What am I looking at here? Is this vampires? Is
Mhm.
this like I wasn't quite sure."
Yeah, it's not really a spoiler that, like you said, just from watching the trailer, you were getting that vibe.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's like kind of this, it's a vampire story, but it's not like Dracula kind of a thing. It's so it takes. I feel like you don't see vampires in an actual like scary or I don't know more dark tone. It's usually Hotel Transylvania or something. Like
yeah. I'm trying to, yeah, or Twilight. I'm trying to
yeah,
think of like the last like real horror with vampires that. Hmm.
and I'm sure there's plenty if you're into the horror genre.
Yeah, I'm sure
But
there
yeah,
is.
that's why I think, like I said, worth a watch. I'm just not sitting here saying it's great. I would have given it probably like a 7. Like, just
Okay.
a solid 7. Like, "Hey, that was good. I enjoyed it." But that's probably about as high as I'd go.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough.
I
So
hope I, convinced you with that glowing review.
yeah, now, John, I'm gonna watch that immediately after we
Yeah.
record. That's
I
how
said,
this is gonna go.
so, IMDb's at a 5.7. I'm higher than these, but I can understand. Like, I feel like I do remember a few parts where I was like, "It's a little slow." And then once it gets going, it's good.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, cool. I'm psyched to even know about it though, and I don't even
Yeah.
I really don't know much about Salem's Lot, so it's kind of cool. Another Stephen
Great book
King
too.
adaptation. So
Yeah, and like I said, I think for you too, you're not like into super scary. And I feel like
no,
this is that good level of it's scary, but it's not like insane.
yeah,
So
yeah, that definitely. I've actually learned something about myself, and I think that's a good transition
mhm.
to into A Quiet Place Day One. So A Quiet Place Day One, we had these movies by John Krasinski, and what is his wife's name? I'm uh Emily Blunt.
Oh, Emily Blunt. Yeah.
Yeah, and these two like amazing kid actresses that are actors that that were in A Quiet Place Day One, and then A Quiet Place Day Two. John
Oh,
Krasinski's not
I think
in
it's
the
just
second
a
one.
Quiet Place. Day one is the new
Oh,
movie.
excuse me, yeah.
Yeah.
Quiet Place and A Quiet Place, Part 2,
Part deux.
and then A Quiet Place Day 1. We're gonna highlight mainly Quiet Place Day 1 here, but I am gonna reference the other
I
movies. Have
want to
you
hear
seen
your
the other movies?
experience. I was gonna say I saw I don't know if I saw it in theaters, the
Okay,
first one, but I remember seeing that like near when it came out. And then I didn't see the second one,
okay,
but I was really jazzed when I first saw this one coming out because,
yeah.
yeah, I just really remember liking the concept. So I was excited that they're bringing it back. But I am excited to hear about uh, your experience watching the others and kind of, I would almost want to hear a ranking of these. But
Oh, yeah.
yeah, because you pretty much said you watched this one, then immediately were like, I gotta go watch the others.
Yeah, definitely. I'm remembering something about myself from, like, maybe my, like, teenage years, that I realized that, like, "Oh, yeah, I like."
Ska music. Yeah, oh, is that what you were
And
gonna say?
and I like I like I like alien movies. Like, I'm a fan of alien movies. Like, I don't mind getting scared inside alien movies. And I don't know why, like, when we watched Don't Look Up, why that didn't get, like, kinda triggered, but, like, that's definitely something that I can recall.
Okay.
And this one is, I just think the premise of that all of these movies sit on is so good.
Yeah.
Like the premise that like the aliens pick up you via sound is like such a solid premise, especially for a movie that's going to be released in theaters, because
Yeah.
the quietness of the movie builds tension all the way through. Like some scary movies can like, they can sometimes they're all up, they're up here like the whole time, and then you're not kind of building tension with it, right? This is just like, I was watching it feeling like I had to be quiet. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I was just like,
It
oh
sets a tone and a mood
yeah,
where
yeah.
you're
I was
like,
just like, oh,
like,
I gotta make sure. So this particular movie is really cool. After the first two movies, is kind of almost like an explanation, and I think is genius concept. I'd be like, all right, we did these two stories back to back of this family. Like, where can we go with this universe from here? And I think this was genius
yeah.
to be like, of course it makes sense that the aliens would attack New York City. And the fact that like at the beginning of this, they had like New York City is this many decibels of sound
Yeah.
at any point in time, and I was like,
Lit-
oh, that makes
It literally
so much
shows that, and
sense.
like I'm sitting there like that's not good, huh? That's not gonna be good. Like, I can't be good. Not for
No,
this movie.
that can't be good at all.
Yeah,
Um,
I did love this concept, and I think
yeah.
that's why, like, if it was just another random movie in The Quiet Place,
hmm
uh, mythos, I probably wouldn't have jumped at it.
hmm
But with this one, I'm like, oh man, like that would like, yeah, how quickly did people, how quickly did the world adjust? How did they adjust? And is it said anywhere in any of the three movies? Did they just land in New York or did they go everywhere?
Um, they so in the second movie, they are picking up radio signals, but like I don't know from how far away those
Okay.
radio signals are. I actually think what's kind of interesting about that is that I think it's cool that they never tell us.
Mm,
Like I kind of think it's awesome that they don't tell us, because they really could decide, like they could do whatever they want now with this series. Like they could be like, you know what, we're gonna release a 6 episode mini series now
oh
of
yeah.
like Quiet Place in California. Who knows? Like, you know what I
It could
mean?
be like the
Like
Walking Dead universe.
100%. Like, so they slowly build the lore, because like especially in the second movie, I think in particular, I think gets closer to the lore, and actually maybe they can't, because they actually come up with a solution in the second movie. So now that I'm
Oh.
thinking about it, um, it might kind of die there. Now that I think about it, almost forgot, because there's just so much. I watched 6 or 7 hour, 8 hours of The Quiet Place.
And now that you mention it, like this is also me not watching the movies
hmm
in a long time, so you might know. But like with them not giving you much background information or anything, it makes you curious how far in the future that is. Like if that's only like a month compared to this movie, is that like a year or two? Like how long until people just went out into the woods and tried to live on their own?
Yeah, I think in the first and in the second one, I think they date the time jumps,
Oh, they do.
and they
Okay.
are not long. They are not long time jumps. So in like The Walking Dead, you see things like start to get like grown over, and like, towns are like kind of,
Yeah.
you can sense that time has passed.
Like that would take a while.
It would take a
like
while,
The
right?
Last of Us.
So yeah, exactly. So that is a good reference. So it would take quite some time. This, I think, only like these 3 stories are told, I think, within like a period of a year or 2. I think it can't be more than 2 years, I
Wow.
think. Yeah, so that really not too much has necessarily changed visually.
This is one thing, and I want to get your opinion.
Mhm.
One thing, I have a couple weird, not knocks, but questionable things with these movies.
Okay.
Number one, do you think that the population of New York City would have gotten, like, would have figured out that sound is what's killing these people that quickly?
I actually do think so. And I
You
actually
do?
think that's
Dang.
I actually think that's like more realistic because like there's so many of them. Like there's so many people like right from the start, and there's something about that feels a little bit more realistic, that like, oh, I noticed, like, cuz all right, let me go based on psychology. There's fight or flight, but there's also freeze, right? So anybody that didn't fight or flight is freezing. And when they notice that the monsters are not attacking them because they're freezing, that's either an indication of, oh, I either don't move, like if either movement is what they're sensing or sound is what they're sensing. So I kind of feel like in a large population that they would start to sense it. Do I think that every single person would? I don't know. As you're being killed off, I feel like more and more people would know.
Yeah, but see, like, they figured out, because like our main character, she gets like knocked out in the very beginning, wakes up to being inside a building.
Mhm.
So I like when you get knocked out, isn't it only for like a few minutes or something like that? Otherwise, you're gonna have like brain trauma essentially. Like, so I'm like, she's out for, let's just say, 10 minutes until
Well,
she
being
comes
knocked
to.
out and being in a coma is different.
Well, I don't think she was in a coma.
No, that's what I'm saying, is that like
Oh,
if brain damage is going to occur, like if oxygen is not getting to your brain.
okay.
When you get knocked out, like you still breathe.
Yeah, I just figured at a certain point, if you're out that long, you probably like.
She probably had
But
a concussion or at least a contusion.
but if she's out like 10 minutes,
Yeah,
15,
yeah.
to wake up to everybody being like, "Oh, be quiet." Like,
Oh, that's a good point.
I just picture, I'm like, "Wait, you're telling me it went from,"
That's a
because
good
it's
point.
in New York City. If we were in a group of 20 people and something was attacking everyone who talked, I think you'd be able to suss it out. But in the city when everything is going absolutely crazy,
Yeah,
I'm like, there's
yeah.
no way. And I'm in the minority, I think, because Kelsey also thought that they, like, you would figure it out
Yeah.
quickly. But I just was like, there's no way. It's like I don't know. I just think it would still be going crazy.
I think that's really funny.
But when they do show up though, it is awesome. Like,
so
in a terrible
cool
way.
when they initially show up. I agree completely. It's fucking wild.
Another comparison to The Last of Us. I loved this I love the, like, not trope, but when the, like, main character is doing something normal, but there's small things that you're picking up, like the cop cars racing by, or,
Yeah.
all of a sudden they walk outside and there's like a really low helicopter ripping by,
Oh yeah.
and they're kind of like, "Oh, what the hell is this?" And you're like, "Oh, it's about to go down."
Oh, I love that. Yeah, 100%.
Because you're like, "Oh, it's happening." And
And they
that's
do that in the original Quiet Place movie. Oh no,
Uh,
is that in the original? No, is that in day 2? So in day 2, yes, in day 2, they flash back to when, yes, not day two, in part two. So the second movie that came out, which is the continuation of John Krasinski's family. In that movie, they flash back to day one.
Oh, they do.
But they flash back to day one for them, for that family.
Oh.
So like they're at a
Yeah, well,
baseball game and they're watching the baseball game, and then like someone looks up and they're like, what the hell is that in the sky? And then people are like kind of starting to panic a little bit, and they like get in their cars and they're like driving on their way home. And then like same thing happens. Certain cars are going one way, certain cars are going another way. You're a little bit confused. You're not really sure what's happening. And then it like just goes. And you're
Yep.
just like, oh, dang. And it's
and
wild.
that's how this one is. Like they, she really wants to get pizza, but the guy's like, they said we have to go back like now.
Yeah.
And she's like, are you kidding me? He's like, "Mm." And you're like, okay, so he's got the call that something's wrong and they need to get back.
Yeah.
I think you start to hear something like, yeah, something's happening in Manhattan or something. But when it goes crazy, it's like everyone's looking out the back of the bus. I think is it when she's looking out the window or she goes outside for a second and then it's like just everything's gone. Like all of a sudden
Yeah.
everything's covered in dust, everything's exploded. It's literally just pandemonium instantly.
Yeah.
And it leads to really cool set design. Like I
True.
think they make the city look amazing in this. Like I think
Yeah,
they
I
make
think
it
so
look
too.
destroyed and empty and
Yeah. I would have loved to see this in the theaters. Like that.
yeah, I
The
really wish I did.
the really cool scene when she does meet up with the kind of other star of the movie who kind of takes over halfway, Joseph Quinn,
Yeah.
who plays Eric, who kind of just like sticks around basically, and like she's like, go away, and he's like, no. And
Yeah,
I
he's
actually
like, "I have
don't
nowhere
blame
to
him.
go."
I'd be like, I wouldn't want to be alone either. Um, Even though that's probably your best way to survive.
Yeah.
So, the scene where they are walking like down the street and like something in particular, I can't remember what they do to trigger a sound.
Oh,
Remember
is
what
it
it
when they
is.
run into like the office building and everything that time?
Yeah. And
She's
like,
at like an outdoor like bookstore or something and he knocks a book over, I think.
oh,
And they like look at each other like, oh no. And you hear off in the distance the things scrambling off buildings. Like,
yeah.
I,
It that scene was, I could tell like, oh, this would have been so cool to see in theaters. Like, because
yeah,
they're like coming from everywhere, like up top, and like that's where like
yeah, that is a cool,
the New York scenes are like perfect for this movie.
yeah.
Like,
I forgot about that, but yeah, it's like they're running down the center of a street and these things are like cascading over the small buildings, down the tall buildings, like flooding the street.
it's
And
wild.
this is another one. I feel like I don't go to I just need to go to the theater. I just
Yeah.
never do it enough. But like this one would have been amazing.
I think it's nowadays like we go to I think we go to the theaters like more selectively nowadays, and I think it's like you got to pick and choose which movies to go to the theaters for. Because
Yeah.
like you want to go see a Mission Impossible, you want to see that in the theaters, right? Like it's anything
Yeah.
with like a big set design is going to be like awesome in terms sound wise or anything like that. That's
Dune, like Dune 2
yeah,
was
yeah,
great and see it.
absolutely.
Another thing with these movies, and then like we'll kind of like I don't think we should really talk about the plot really. I like
No.
like I like the only other gripe I have with these movies is like just how impossible it would be in this scenario. Like there's sometimes when like big sounds trigger these things, but I'm like when they're running across the street after like they kind of set them off, I'm like just running would make a lot of noise on concrete. I'm like everything makes noise and I'm like is it really that Like, oh my God. Like, it's just so crazy. Like, and then I don't know. Sometimes I feel like they'd be walking or doing something. I'd be, that would trigger it. That should have triggered it. How come they're not coming now? And they would just be like, I was like, oh, come on. Like, I was like, I feel like they moved the goalposts a little bit.
Well, you know what's interesting is I like this concept. Like, I just like there's like very small things in all of these movies that I really like. Like, for example, like in the first movie, it was like her earpiece that like because she was deaf, the daughter,
Mm,
she was deaf, so she had like a hearing aid, and John Krasinski like put a like new battery in it or something, and like multiple times, I think she's like approached by one of the aliens and the alien gets too close to her. One time she doesn't even notice that it's there. And the sound from the earpiece like makes the thing go nuts. Which I loved. But then they also set up rules where it makes sense in all of these movies. They show this as an example where water is
yeah.
something that like obviously is fairly loud that can mute sound. So in one of the movies, John Krasinski's yelling into a waterfall. They do it in A Quiet Place Day One where they like scream inside the building. Um,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, so there's like a lot of examples of that, and I'm like, hey, this is cool. But my favorite use of this is the cat. Like, it makes so much sense that a cat would kind of have like no problem. Like, occasionally, though, like,
I
certain
was like, did you
cats
see all
meow
like
like
the,
freaking crazy.
have you ever seen like the TikTok kind of trends of people doing the quiet place test with their cat?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
They've
it would
not.
be
They've
it would be
not.
like they'd like scoop them up and like go to jog by, and like a lot of the cats are like wow 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 wow. Like
That's
like so like
hilarious.
I would get like animal shelters trying it on like their different cats that they had and
Oh,
stuff.
that's so funny.
We definitely I Kelsey scooped up our cat Willa like
Yeah,
right after the movie, and I was like, I think she passed. Like she picked her up and like ran around the apartment. She didn't make a noise, so I'm like, we're good.
that's amazing. I'm so glad you tried that.
Yeah,
Oh, that's so
so
funny.
I
I think
gotta say it
certain
was
I think
like
certain cats would be screwed, and then other cats would be like,
yeah.
have no problem with it.
But that
Um,
was like the first thing. It's like this movie started, and immediately like you see that she has a cat, and Kelsey's like, John, if that cat dies, I swear to God. And I was like, oh no. I was like, because I had no idea. I'm like, oof.
yeah, that's one of the
Um,
rules. The pet can't die, right? Like, people do
yeah.
not like that.
But overall, I like this movie. I
It's
think it's
cool.
pretty universally liked, right? I haven't
Actually,
really looked at.
interestingly enough, when I was looking at the ratings, it's got worse critic ratings, and then
Mm,
it's like Metacritic score, like user score, is very, very high. Like, people really like this movie. Critics are like, eh, but it was
oh no,
long.
it's actually reverse of what you're saying.
Oh, I thought, okay,
Critics have it at an 87, and then it's on a 73 audience score,
okay, I was looking at the wrong
which
score.
they actually changed. I wanted to bring this up. Do you know they changed it from the audience score now? They changed the name. Now it's the popcorn meter.
I did not
So
know
you got
this.
the tomato meter and the popcorn meter.
Okay, okay. I kind of like it. I kind of like it.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
It's almost like you're like saying like, okay, what's the user experience, the popcorn, like, I get it. Makes
Wow, this
sense.
is weird. So on the popcorn meter, I feel like some movies, if they have enough reviews, if you click on it, they have verified ratings
Hmm.
and then all audience.
Hmm.
The verified ratings on this are 73.
Hmm.
All audience is a 64.
Weird.
I feel like that's way too low. I feel like the 87, 73, somewhere in there
Yeah.
is pretty accurate. Like,
There's a part of me that thinks this movie is too long. I
mm,
like stopped it at one point and I was like, I still have half the movie left. Like, I was like,
yeah,
is this for real? Like,
it
I
gets to the action quick, but then all the rest of the movie is them having to be quiet.
I
And
there's like one. I mean, I guess it makes her like use a lot of effort, but the whole the one part that I really thought they could have gotten rid of, I'm sure there's some plot that I'm forgetting that's
Mhm.
important to it, but the whole like water underground subway thing, like I understand it was cool, but cut it all. Like you don't need it.
Yeah.
There's like a bunch of this part of this movie where it's like
I feel like they're near the end. Like, they try to be kinda sentimental and stuff when they finally
mhm.
get to pizza. Like, that scene is long because I feel like
Yeah, and
I
she's
think
like
they
pretending to
really
play the
want you to like
piano.
these characters.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a big part of what it is, why it's so long because it takes so long just to get him in the movie. So you need another half of a movie to make them care about each other, I guess. And I don't know. Well, oh, I'll tell you what. I was thinking about this. I watched these like 2 or 3 weeks ago at this point as when we said we were gonna do it. Um, you know those trends is like, "My toxic trait is blah, 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 blah," right?
Yeah.
My toxic trait is believing that I could easily survive in this universe.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I'm like, "Oh, this is like an introvert's wet dream." Like, are you telling me that I have to, like, read books and, like, be quiet all day? I can do that.
that's what that's what's frustrating and, like, my little pet peeve with these. I feel like there's part of me that feels that way, then the other part of me that's like, "How much of a noise do I need to make?" Like, if I'm inside my apartment, tucked
Yeah,
away,
yeah,
and I drop a pen,
yeah,
is that enough? Or if I yeah, it's just, like, trip over nothing.
sure.
That's loud enough to trigger, like, this thing to come after you? Or, like,
I think it will depend on a lot of things, right? Like, because in yeah, it's a really good
I feel like
question.
if I went back and watched the first and second one, I would have a better understanding
You'd have a better understanding.
because they have their
Yeah,
life figured out, like a routine.
yeah. I think you would get a better understanding after you watch all 3 movies, but, I'm sure the rules change, but I think they do a pretty good job if you're really not paying attention that closely of making
Mhm.
it fairly even across the board. Because nothing really jumps out that atrociously, from all 3. That's like, "Hey, wait a minute, you did this, but you did this too?" That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But anyway, Quiet Place movies, pretty solid. I
Yeah,
enjoyed them
I'm definitely gonna
thoroughly.
go back and watch the other 2.
I'd say you asked me if I could rank them.
Oh,
I
yeah.
would
Give us quick rank here
I would go the original Quiet Place movie
as the bottom.
as the top. Like
Oh,
that's number 1.
ooh,
That's
okay.
number 1. Um, yeah, that's definitely number 1. And then Quiet Place Day 1 would be number 2. And then the second movie Quiet Place Part 2 would be number 3.
Okay.
In that order.
I
Yeah,
kind of assumed that one would be last for some reason.
Quiet Place Part 2 was fun and interesting, but um it was more like lore building than anything
Hmm.
else. And
Maybe they thought they were
yeah,
gonna have one of those, like, they released that movie, and then they have some spin-off show, and then there's another movie. Like, maybe they really had the
maybe
plan to
maybe but
ramp this puppy up.
they really do find a solution to the issue at the end of that second movie. So I wonder like it makes me want to know like how did
Yeah,
they
I could
start
see them
using that? But it
do
is
that. Or
when you do think about it, like this isn't even a spoiler, but when you think about it, like if all it is sound and you recognize that like they're so sensitive to sound, blasting music or a certain frequency is of course gonna be
Yeah.
a solution. So I feel like, and once you get that solution and you know that solution, it feels like it's like kind of a, all right, well, they're going to be able to get the planet back pretty easily.
Yeah.
Um, just
But
like in the movie Signs, when they figure out that, oh, water is their enemy. There's water everywhere on this planet. It rains, for Christ's sake.
I was thinking I wouldn't mind if they were going to make another one of these movies, another one of these day one movies,
Yeah.
but in a setting like Signs,
Okay.
where or what was the Jordan Peele movie? Not
Don't Look Up.
yeah, something like that where it's like a rancher or something, and one of these things shows up, and now they're all showing up and like defending him, like them figuring out like how to kill them or something, and like fighting them off and not really knowing what the hell's going on.
I can see
Like I
that.
feel
Yeah.
like something like that where just a completely different setting than a city and how it would go.
Yeah. It's also the other partial solution that works really well is boats.
Yeah.
Boats work really well against these things. So, boats and sound. Yeah, sound is, it's like our Achilles heel, but also its Achilles heel. All right. So anyway, those are the Quiet Place movies. If you haven't seen them, just go check them out. They're really fun to
Yeah.
sit through. And yes, there's some jump scares.
And you don't
but
have to watch the first two to watch this one at all.
no, you really don't. I'd say if you're gonna go like to part 2 right away, I'd say maybe start with part 1 before you do that, because there's
Yeah.
a lot of context that those are continuations of themselves. So that's the only one I wouldn't watch isolated. But other than that, you're good. That's been an episode of the Screened In Podcast, our October spooky episodes. You can find us on the gram. And we also have a Discord if you'd like to join that. And I'm Mike Berger. That's John Artegler. Adios, everyone.
See you later.